welcome to Let Jamie Talk. I'm Jamie, joined with Ben as always, and I'm excited to have Arlo here on the show today. And this is our episode 2 of having Arlo, or our continuation.
That's it, part 2, bonus episode.
Part 2.
Bonus episode with Arlo.
Wait,
We've been having a great time.
Is this like a bad sequel to a movie or something? No.
Oh, no. Here, we're going to bring your mic in a little closer there. No, it's a good sequel. That's what it is.
Okay.
So we've been cutting up on break time here. And, I don't get to hang out with Arlo like I used to.
Right.
I used to hang out 8 hours a day on the job, and that was a lot of fun.
You used to pay him to hang out with you.
I know. There was a movie where the kid had to pay his friends to come hang out. What was that movie?
Yeah, but wasn't that a woman? She got paid to date some guy or something.
I don't know.
Like
That's
that.
something else, but I think that's different. But anyway, Arlo, before we get into talking some more, I have a gift for you. Now, I guess I have a gift for you.
You guys have already given me like major gift in that GoFundMe. It's like unbelievable.
Well, good. I'm glad you're enjoying your retirement. This one is I'm going to hand it to you, but it's not actually from me.
Okay.
So if that makes sense,
can I see it real quick?
This was
I don't know what it is.
A special gift.
Should I show it to the camera first?
Yeah, you can. Made by a viewer who actually became a friend of mine. That I think I sold him a table, and he
is this it, or is this open too?
It's a box inside a box.
I got you. I'll show it after.
This is a thing for you. Each of the crew members has one of these, and you also being a crew member. So go ahead and open it up there. Go ahead and open it up.
This is kind of
and you have to pretend to love it even if you don't. No, I'm just kidding. I put you on the spot. You will.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
are you guys all like wearing them on the job?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
I did see it. I went to the job, and you all had them on the day you got them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll have to hold that up. Maybe Ben can hold it up to the camera.
Yeah, here we go. Awesome.
It's a silver casting of our Perkins Builder Brother
logo
put onto a necklace. And
that's not great.
My buddy Mitch,
there it is.
From I think the name of his thing's on there. Let me read it real quick.
Well,
the Jeweler's Bench, and he's an amazing jeweler. So
thank you, Mitch.
Yeah,
thank you.
Those are pretty cool.
All I can say is it's pretty wild to be, or honored to be a part of the Perkins Builder Brothers Crew. It's just kind of crazy to see that happen because. You guys, when I started working, was Eric filming? He just was starting.
He wasn't. 6 years. I think it's been 6 years of YouTube filming.
Yeah,
yeah. So it wasn't really a thing
at the beginning. Yeah,
no.
Yeah, and like when you guys started, I was kind of like, whatever.
No, I know.
Well, but I mean, it just didn't seem like it was. You kind of are thinking, is this going anywhere or anything? And then all of a sudden, Yahoo, boom.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, it just blew up like crazy. It was just like amazing.
Eric has really done an awesome job with the producing this thing and dreaming it up and making it a reality.
Right.
So that's incredible, actually.
And he went to school, didn't he, in some kind of media something?
Yeah,
didn't he?
Yeah. Eric went to school at UNCA Asheville for computer science and graphic design.
There you go. Yeah.
So he's finally putting all that hard-earned work into real practical use now. So, he's a wizard at the editing.
Oh yeah, and I mean, you just look at it because you can go on YouTube and look at all kinds of stuff, and you're like, okay, some things are just unwatchable, even though it might be interesting.
That's right.
You might be watching something right now.
No, I'm just kidding. Wait a minute! I thought this was a talk show.
It is. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in our part 1 here, and Ben has had some questions from some of the viewers that you have been answering, and some questions that I've had that have just now been a great opportunity for me to ask certain questions about you, and so we're going to continue with that. Ben, I don't know if you've got any queued up or if you want to.
Yeah. I think in part 1 we talked a lot about Arlo's history with the Perkins Builder Brothers and some of that. So what we're going to do now, I think, is dive into a little bit more of just Arlo before Perkins Builder Brothers and just who he is. Because I think a lot of the fans of Perkins Builder Brothers and this podcast are interested in knowing a little bit more than just the surface of what they see of the whole crew. they're back, so it's, so that's what, with our first guests that were part of that, part of your crew, I think that's what we're going to try to do is dig into that. So, Arlo, let's see, we're going to start where are you from? Where were you born?
I was actually, let's see, I was born in Hennepin County Hospital in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay.
My parents lived in Mound. My dad was from Chicago. My mom was from North Dakota. And anyways, they ended up in Minnesota. And
okay.
So that's where I was born.
And what did they do? What did your parents do? Not that it had to be one thing, but
it's kind of interesting. My dad actually had an engineering degree, and he built some. Let's put it this way: he built our house growing up. It was a really cool house, but in the day, as energy inefficient as you could imagine, but especially in the Dakotas there, but. He was a pretty good craftsman, but he was really a traveling salesman most of the time. He did that, and so he wasn't home a lot, and so I was kind of left to play in a shop with a lot of stuff, and
gotcha.
Amazingly, I didn't cut anything off.
Right. That's good.
And
I'm happy for you.
But I'm talking at a young age and having no clue,
Wow.
But it was interesting. My dad, I think he gave me a jigsaw probably when I was about, I think, third grade.
Oh,
and
wow.
I think his thought process on that was, okay, he can cut himself with this, but he probably can't saw it off, right?
Yeah.
You could stop it before it
yeah,
cuts through.
yeah.
Not too much kickback.
And so I kind of, and I was like a kid who just, I just was into building stuff, I don't know, I did a lot of drawing. I was that kid in school who was always drawing race cars on the side of their that, and everything like that. So,
did you ever do, what is that? The soapbox?
Soapbox car.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was a big soapbox derby things,
Yeah.
and
Him and his jigsaw.
Yeah.
I don't know why we don't give every third grader a jigsaw.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say, but and then this is funny. I was like, I had a 10-speed bicycle, and like when I was growing up. Nobody will remember this, but maybe somebody. But Schwinn came out with these Stingray bicycles, right? And which was a banana seat on it and high handlebars. And I really wanted one of those. And my dad was just like he was completely against it. And so I took my allowance money and I got this 20-inch frame, and then I took these aluminum tubes that were like 5 feet long. And made it an extended fork, for like a chopper type bicycle. But, I didn't have any welding skills or anything. So the only thing I could do with the head tube was like this. And to get these tubes to go on it, the bottom piece was here and here. So when you turned the bicycle, it actually kind of folded into, the part of it went over there. So it took real skill to ride it actually. But, so I was into doing stuff, a lot of stuff like
tinkering.
that.
You had ambition.
Ambition. Yeah. I just kind of
problem solving.
Yeah, it was and I think I know I really got it from my grandfather in Chicago, who, his dad's side of the family, he was immigrant from Austria, fleeing Hitler, whatever. And he ended up in Chicago, and he was an incredible metal worker. And so I didn't really realize it at the time, but when he died, he, went to the big wake funeral thing, and, like half of Chicago bigwigs coming out because he'd like made all these signs, all these metal signs that had all the neon stuff on it, all these famous old theaters and this and that in Chicago, which was kind of wild, pretty cool. So I've got a bunch of pictures and stuff of that.
So a lot of gangsters.
Yeah, so it kind of, I think I got it from him. Yeah. He's very talented.
Am I right in thinking you still have some of the shears, the metal shears?
Yeah, well, I think I showed you some, and didn't Yeah, I showed you some of that. He had, some of it. And remember the guy with the zinc house? He was like, where did you get these? He goes, you can't even buy these anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah.
Amazing.
So,
That's, now, speaking of gifts, I want to tie that back into this. You got the whole crew a gift when you left the retirement.
Yeah.
What was that? Was that on the? They showed that off.
I think
It was a timber framing chisel, and it was I was just kind of like, I don't know. It was a really special time, working with all these guys. So I was, and every one of them, and I was, and it was, I don't know, kind of band of brothers kind of thing or whatever. And so I thought I got to have something that will be a little permanent here or whatever. So, I got a big old timber framing chisel and had them, laser etched with the, Perkins Brothers stuff on them. I think I got with you. You had
we got
to make you the images. I still got mine.
The font and stuff.
Have you used yours?
Yeah. Oh, I've used mine. You don't want to know what I've done to mine.
No, I've used mine. I've been really careful with it, but it's looking a little rough, but it's still really sharp. It's good. So.
Well, a tool like that, it's.
I said use it. You got to use it.
It's tempting to preserve it in its absolute new perfection state, but I'm telling you what, this stuff's meant to be used, and I have used mine.
Yeah, you got to.
And so it's not just sitting. Not doing that either. It's not just sitting on a shelf.
Yeah,
a little bit of a tongue twister there.
Well, sometimes you need a big chisel to, who knows?
Yeah,
whatever.
you never know. It's more than a chisel. It's a pry bar.
Yeah,
it's a screwdriver. It's a hammer.
You're not using it for a screwdriver.
It's a wedge. You can lift a house.
Yeah, not a screwdriver.
Like I said, you don't want to know what I did to mine. But it's like getting a nice hand plane. Like a Lie Nielsen or Lee Nielsen, whatever they're called. You get one of those as a gift, or you give one to somebody, and this is like their prize hand tool. And it's like, you're only going to save that for the. Whatever. The problem is you end up saving it forever and you never use it. So for me, like when I have stuff like that laying around, I use it. I just use it like,
I came up with it. It was kind of a funny thing. I had, we called it, or Jason called it the Cherokee chisel or whatever. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
And I had this big chisel and, and every once in a while we'd be doing something on the job and then, everybody would be, hey, you got that big chisel in the car, right? And, so, and then I was doing something at my house. We don't even want to get into what I was doing. But anyways, I was doing some demo work with it. And there was all this trash laying everywhere. And I thought I picked everything up. And I guess it went down on the ground and was gone. And I was and of course.
You did get you one too, though?
We all have. Yeah. It's all, we all got one.
Everybody's got one.
Yeah, everyone's got one.
Don't lose it.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm going to try.
There you go.
All right, sorry, side tangent, but back to your family life. Yeah. Any brothers or sisters?
Have one sister.
Okay.
She lives over in Franklin.
So not that far.
Not that far. She used to live in Atlanta. She's in the medical field. Is kind of what she did her whole life, but she's also pretty talented. She does a lot of quilting, and she's like one of those obsessive older quilt ladies. A little scary, but
quilt squares.
Yeah. Well, big
yes,
things. I actually have quilts with like hammers and framing squares and things on them like that.
Nice.
Crazy stuff. So
that's we talked a little bit in the last episode about your about high school, a lot about high school and what you did in there, and and it's funny you brought up the soapbox thing.
Yeah.
And that's a fond memory of mine that I had, growing up, was like building those little soapbox derby cars to do the wooden track races or whatever. But because, we got into it, we had to have the fastest one.
Yeah.
And I remember like still to this day with my dad, like being in the workshop, like we would, because they're going to be a certain weight. We would drill out holes and then put lead in the bottom of it to get it like to push that limit, get the lead in the right spot. we would take the wheels off and we would like sand them.
Yeah, you had to sand them to get
to taper them.
Yeah, you
never did
sand
any
them
of
to
that.
taper them, or sand them to get the little molding bump off. You know, any of that stuff to get it, and sand them for taper. Yeah,
exactly. So
totally.
I never heard of that.
If we'd had blades, we would have. And then I don't know. Were you into like trying to polish the nails so there was no little burrs on the nails and all that stuff?
Yeah, we got really into it. You gotta win.
Well, I hope you won.
Yeah,
You know,
man.
with all that
I've got
effort.
a wall of trophies.
No way.
I'm just kidding. I don't.
Okay.
No.
Well, fair enough.
If I did, I didn't keep them. But that was that was a good throwback for me when you mentioned that. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Like those good like memories that pop up. But so after what happened, I guess we talked about high school. So what happened after high school? Where did you go?
So this is kind of crazy. I just to get a little background. Okay, so I grew up in Minnesota from birth till second grade.
Okay.
Then my parents moved to South Dakota. Yeah, second, third, fourth. Yeah. And the crazy thing is, in second grade, moved to South Dakota, and it was like 300 miles away, just over the border. And Aberdeen, South Dakota it's closer to Minnesota. It's kind of like a little more, it's still plains and flatland, but a few trees and stuff around. But anyways, I over there, I spent that from second grade up through ninth grade. And then my parents, they didn't like the school system in Aberdeen, South Dakota. They thought it was a little too wild and whatever. So
Gotcha.
So they sent me to can't say sent me, but I didn't really want to go. But anyways, I went to a school in Minneapolis, a private high school called Minnehaha Academy. A small joke.
I didn't.
But you guys don't remember Minnehaha Academy?
I never heard of that.
Okay, don't you remember like about 10 years ago, some school blew up in Minneapolis? Huge explosion, blew the whole thing off, made national news. Go look it up. Yeah, anyways, but that's where I went to high school in 10th, 11th, 12th grade. So after high school, I went back to Aberdeen, and then I did 2.5 years in college in South Dakota. But in the summer times, I had a good friend from Minneapolis that I'd gone to school with, and we ended up having a piece of property up in Lutzen, Minnesota, in northern Minnesota, and we built this funky cabin in the middle of nowhere, actually on the edge of the Boundary Waters. And we'd go out and hang up there, whatever, do all kinds of stuff, canoeing, kind of doing the outdoor crazy stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Then when I worked I was working, I was doing that, on and off. And then eventually I got out of college. I worked in Aberdeen for 3 or 4 years as a carpenter, and I met the original guy that I, really taught me a lot of stuff. His name was Al Dutenhofer. He's passed on, but amazing guy. And worked for him for a little bit. But I mean, back then, I was making big money, and I was making $3.25 an hour. But then I moved to Minneapolis, and this buddy that we had the cabin, his dad had a masonry company, so now we started working full time for him, and that's where I actually really got my block laying experience. Gotcha. And then after I don't know how many years of that is where I really kind of got into the boat building, kayaking, and that's how I ended up down here at the Outdoor Center in Bryson City.
Yeah, that draw.
Yeah, in 80. Yeah. So kind of all that.
What happened to the Boundary Waters cabin? That's interesting.
It's sold. It's sold a long time ago.
Yeah.
I parted ways. Actually, this buddy, we're still really good friends. It was more his. I worked on it more than I worked on it a lot, but it was more his. But we we parted ways on it. We also were C2 partners. We paddled together a lot. And then when I came to the Outdoor Center and started working, I was kind of thinking he would, but he didn't. And,
for those that may not know what C2 is, can you explain that?
It's a canoe, but it's a decked canoe. So you use it like a kayak. You do more, whitewater type stuff, heavier whitewater.
And are they all tandem?
Yeah, C2. There's like C1s, which is solo. C2 is 2.
Yeah, synchronized canoeing.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and we were pretty darn good, John Amron and I. We didn't swim. We rolled almost everywhere.
Wow.
Wow.
Probably why I have to have hearing aids, because we spent a lot of time in Lake Minnetonka upside down in the wintertime, really cold, learning how to roll, where we'd be upside down, and in a C2 you could bend up and have your face and lip out of the water, and you'd be talking to each other, okay, on 3, get ready. And maybe you'd make it or you wouldn't, and then you try again. It's crazy.
I'm going to say it. That sounds awful.
Yeah.
That sounds awful.
Anyways,
from somebody who's also had to learn how to roll a kayak in cold Nanahala water.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's warm water.
Yeah. Oh, no. That's more, oh man. It makes your head hurt.
Yeah.
Like you got a brain freeze is how warm that is.
Did you kayak a lot, Jamie?
I did when I was little, yeah. My family also was at the NOC, and my parents worked at the NOC doing different things, and so I grew up in that area and spent a lot of time on the Nanahala River in a kayak and a raft and swimming when I was a kid. I used to go to daycare down there after school. I'd ride the school bus to the NOC and stay there and wait, at the daycare while my parents finished a work day, until 5 or whatever.
Wow.
So it's not to interrupt, but it's funny because his dad, that's how we met. We ended up at NOC the same year, and little did we know, that Payson Kennedy had the ulterior motive that everybody he hired that year, there was 5 of us were carpenters, builders, architects, whatever.
What a coincidence.
What a coincidence, because they had bought that property, and my plan when I came down here was 2 years, and I was a racer like your dad was, but I got down here and, I was a hot shot in the Midwest, but I got down here and I wasn't, I was just mediocre, and I was this doesn't fly. So,
what a letdown.
but anyways, that's how I got to know your dad. And it's pretty, the whole start of it. And then I think your dad, did he stay at NOC 2 years maybe?
I don't exactly know. I know he was a raft guide for a period of time.
Well, he was an instructor type. He started out a raft guide and then an instructor, and then, and then you whatever. But I just remember I stayed for, I don't know, 10, 15 years and got really poor. And then, and your dad went off and made a fortune.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Anyways.
What year was that you came to NOC?
In 1980.
1980,
Yeah,
okay.
and that's when I made the move, down here. Yeah.
And that's sort of when, can you describe NOC back in 1980? Because it's not what it is today.
Yeah, I mean, well,
it was much different culture and vibe, and
everybody that was there was a pretty serious paddler, and I don't want to say the athletic level was a lot higher. There was a lot of Olympic types, and there still has been.
Oh, yeah.
But if you went to the general overall, NOC, I think has gotten a lot. Well, I can tell you this: they're just almost more in the resort business than they are in the outdoor business now. I mean,
right?
Commercialized.
Commercialized. Yeah.
Well, and then back then there wasn't a lot of other options when it came to the whitewater world. As far as I wasn't really alive, but there was no Charlotte Whitewater Center or things like that.
There was actually 2 places in the country. There was NOC, and there was a place on the left coast called Otter Bar out in California.
Gotcha.
But NOC was by far the bigger one, way bigger. And it just, I think they just lucked out. They attracted a lot of people that ended up being really good.
Yeah.
So
it's fun to watch. There'll be some days down at BCO that there'll be some event going on, your retirement was one of the last ones that I remember, and it was just like a patio full of like 1980s NOC, folks. It's just always
it's just kind of weird. Like it's funny, like when Ray, Ray McLeod passed. It's like I don't know,
a huge gathering.
Huge gathering. Yeah, you saved the day for me.
That have why is that?
Well, it's weird. I used to talk publicly in clinics all the time and stuff, didn't have any trouble doing it. Then I had all the ear trouble and all that. And, and it just kind of got the hard modulating the voice and stuff. And so I was always kind of stepped back from speaking publicly. And, there'd been a couple of funerals where I would have said something, but then, Ray was there, and then I thought, oh, Jamie's on the soundboard. He can save me.
Oh, yeah. I did set up the sound for the event.
Anyways,
So did you help build part of the NOC, the structures out there? I mean, you mentioned there was a bunch of carpenters out there.
Pretty much everything that's there.
Oh, wow.
From the day.
What were y'all like? Well, that's weird. You're an architect, too? Huh.
I was, too,
You're a carpenter, too? Yeah. What about the Raft Room, the actual...
Raft Room?
The Raft Room. With the gym upstairs and where you get your paddles and life jackets.
Yeah, what about it?
Did y'all build that, or was that existing?
Oh, yeah, we built it. Yeah. We hand dug all those piers.
In the riverbed, basically.
In the riverbed. Huh? I mean, I've never, it's unbelievable. Like these 3x3 holes, 3 or 4 feet deep in gravel and rocks like this. And it's like, and how many of you've been underneath that thing. It's like unreal. How many of them. It's like,
I have been under it. I'm gonna tell you why. For people listening, they don't know what we're talking about. Well, first of all, the Raft Room is a wooden structure that's kind of like more like an open air building. Where they keep all the life jackets, all the paddles, and all the wetsuits, and everything that you get when you go rent or go rafting. They've got a big open yard area in the back that's fenced in with all the rafts. Mm-hmm. So as a kid, we'd like sneak into the back where they keep all the blown up rafts, and they're stacked on edge, like stood up on their sides. We'd go bouncing across these rafts. It was just like a fun place to play.
Like trampolines.
Unless you fell down in between them and you couldn't get out. But I have some pretty good memories of that place. But and I remember going to some Raft Room parties. I guess the NOC would host like some parties sometimes. And they would have like music and a bunch of NOC folks dancing around like crazy. And I was just a kid, and I was like, what is this? But anyway, still good memories. But we found out somehow that sometimes people would change clothes to go rafting. And since this was kind of an open deck, whoa, hang on.
See where this is going.
Well, anyway, the whole building was built like a deck, so there's gaps between the deck boards. And people would drop their change. And we figured this out when we were kids. We could crawl under the buildings and find a bunch of money.
Oh, okay.
We would. And now, when I say a bunch of money, I'm talking like a long day of it. You get $5 worth of change.
That's not where Arlo.
No. But I thought he was going somewhere else because he was talking about the Raft Room. But like when we built the other building next to it, Slow Joe's, and that was like the change room and the bathrooms. Like you guys probably invented it because you're older than Jonno. But I remember.
Well, Jonno's older than me, but Eric and them.
Oh, that's right. But Jonno went under that.
Yeah.
I think he's the first guy that went under that, and he came out with like $25. Whoa. Because nobody had, and we all accused him, like, what are you going under there for? Anyways, and he comes out with all his money, and we're like, oh my gosh, just crazy.
And that's funny. There's, Jonno ties into this group even before Perkins Builder Brothers too, right?
Well, that's true. Yes.
Yeah, his brother especially.
Yeah.
So we'll see if we can entice some of the other crew members to come on the show sometime.
You need to get Jonno in here.
It's just funny how all of this that's happened today can tie back to other parts and the history of of everybody meeting and having been acquaintances and then transforming into what it is today.
I'll tell you a funny little story about Jonno. This is and he was really small. I mean, I'm trying to think of was he? God, I mean, he probably was like 3 or 4 maybe. But anyways, it's like, okay, we're the adults, right? But anyway, so it's like a Christmas party or something. We're sitting at this house, I can't remember, it was football or something, but there's a ton of NOC people here. And we're all sitting talking, and it's a typical deal, talking river stuff, this lion river story or that one. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see Jonno and Adam and Matt, and they have a laundry basket. And they've got this short canoe paddle. And they're taking turns going down the stairs, And what's really funny, I start listening to them, and they're totally mimicking everybody, like, yeah, I went over that drop and I got slammed, and then I caught the eddy at the bottom of the dog, and I really got thrashed. And this was Jonno. It's like, oh my God, it's so funny going down in a laundry basket.
That does sound like Jonno, for sure.
It's pretty funny.
I have to ask him about that Monday.
So So here's, think about the Perkins crew. Like, there's all this intertwined knowing everybody from, whether, other family or family members, and just pretty intertwined.
Yeah, and I think that leads to, a lot of people talk about the Perkins Builder Brothers crew and how it's so unique, the relationships you have, and that's one of the driving things for viewers, I think, is just like watching it and being a part of seeing your all's camaraderie on the job site and things like that, and that may not be possible everywhere because, the bigger the group of you draw from, they're not going to have as intertwined pasts and things like that. So, that's...
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, some of the other guys, we didn't know before, like Jason, and he's got a cool story about how he got here, and Ray, and now Max, has been working with us.
Ooh,
so,
right. Is he working out? Is he going to stay?
Well, I don't want to
Here we
throw
go.
a spoiler out, but Max is a student at Western Carolina University studying construction management.
Right.
And he's realizing how different, like, real life construction, at least on a residential site, is than what he's being taught in school. And I'm sure he's learning all kinds of very good, important things. But he's going to be graduating, I think maybe today even.
Really?
Yeah. Probably. Well, I know
it might be today.
Oh, wow.
There's I'm going to somebody's graduation on, it's Friday, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's today. There's different things.
So,
today, tomorrow. Yeah.
It's graduation season here, and Max is graduating, I hope. Good luck, buddy.
Go.
And he called me the other night. He's been working for me part-time, and he's like, hey, I'm going to be graduating. Do you want to have me working for you full time, or he's like, what do you think? He's like, do you guys like me, or do you want to, do you want to fire me, or do you want to have me work for you more? And, we're working on this big mega mansion. And, Arlo quit. And so, I need somebody to work. No, I'm just kidding. I told him that, it'd be great to have you full time, at least through this next project. And I said, you might have some opportunities come up, and he might jump on something else that comes up. But in the meantime,
I feel like this is a pretty good opportunity.
I mean, it's something. I don't know.
Does Max know this, or
he does.
Like announcing it to Max?
Max, I hope you're listening. If not, you didn't get the job. No, he knows. And I didn't even have to think about it either.
Right.
I didn't, I was like, dude, stay on. He's a great young guy.
Yeah, he
seems like
good.
a great fit, especially being that young, coming on to the crew, and I mean he's a hard worker.
He is a lot of the things. We had an episode talking about young people getting in the trades and such, and he's a lot of the things that I would look for somebody that's responsible enough to show up.
Right.
He calls if he can't come in. He calls to find out where we're working if something's weird. He's respectful, and he asks what I want him to do and how should I do this, and he's very teachable and stuff like that. So
the last day I was up there, I think when he was working at the mega house, he was like, his shoulders were like beat from like what was he doing? He had like driving those.
The truss screws.
The truss screws.
Oh yeah. So,
it was just like, I got up there towards the end of the day, and he was just like,
that house. He's probably like driving like how many?
I don't know. I'm like, all right, this is how you do it. I showed him one or two. And I'm like, okay, now do this 100 and something more times.
Right.
I think I bought 150 of those screws that are like 6 inches long, and they're all over your head, and on a ladder too. A lot of them, you have to climb a ladder and get up there. So
I mean, to do that and still be able to smile at the end of the day.
That's right. No complaining. No complaining.
So I think a good hire. Not that you needed my approval, but
no. And I wasn't looking to really hire anybody, but it seems like most of the time when the right fit comes along, it may not be something you were searching for. It just kind of happened. I mean, it was funny, Arlo, when we had, I want to tell the story about when me and Arlo had our first discussion about whether he was going to work for us or we had kicked around the idea. I said, hey, let's meet for coffee. Let's just talk about it and see if it seems like it might be a good fit. And some of these coffee shops around town close on a certain day of the week. So I said, hey, meet me down at, I think it was Mountain Perks.
Yeah.
And I said, meet me down there at 7. Okay. Well, it was dark at 7 and we both showed up and it was closed. This was before your coffee shop was in town. DCO market wasn't there, so don't feel bad. No. But anyway, I said, well, it's just a little walk. Let's just walk down to Gianna's place there. And so we walked down the street. They're closed too. Whatever day of the week it was, it was Tuesday. It probably was a Tuesday. I don't know how you guys figure out what day of the week that everybody's going to live without coffee, but that's tough to decide. All right. So we
just a lot of cranky people.
We walked down there and they were closed too, and we didn't have a third option, so we literally just sat at a little table on the sidewalk in the dark.
Avery Street Diner. It had to be a Tuesday if the Avery Street Diner wasn't open.
No, I don't even know
it
down that
was
far.
I don't. That's way.
So we had our hangout on the sidewalk in the dark at 7.
Coffee.
It was nice. I don't know what time of year or whatever. But we talked and we decided, hey, this is a good idea, so let's do it.
Well, then, so how many years at NOC? Out there, like 10?
I spent 9 years. Then I went to California for a few years. Then I came back, and I think I spent another 5 years there. And then
why California?
I got married and went to California, and that I wasn't exactly a California guy.
What part?
Oh man,
what part of California?
The Bay Area.
Oh, okay.
San Jose. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It was, it was kind of crazy because the ex-wife, she was actually a pretty big shot at what was it, Ernst & Young, which was a big accounting firm, and so we had agreed when we went out there I was going to be Mr. Mom, and I did that for a few years, and which actually was really pretty fun. And I will say this, that anybody who's mom, male or female, it's a lot of work. Let's put it this way: anybody being a mom, hats off.
For sure.
But anyway, so I was out there for a few years, and but I ended up coming back here. It didn't work out. So
So how many kids were you mom to?
Just one.
Okay.
Just one.
All right.
Cody, right?
Cody, yeah.
Cody.
Yeah. And
Cody's actually helped me with some stuff because I was complaining to Arlo about trying to figure out how to work a CNC machine that I had.
Yep.
And by the way, I don't have it now.
Yeah.
Oh, you did get rid of it?
I can't believe just when I'm getting ready for him to cut me some stuff, he gets rid of it. I can't believe it.
Yep.
But he gave it to Ray. Is Ray going to get it running?
Pulled it with his truck.
I did. So, well, at any rate, your son Cody is a CNC expert.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. When he was in school, I was like, what are you doing? He was like no, I mean, seriously, all he was into was like, what is it? All these weird Japanese mask stuff and, Gundam Wing and all this crazy stuff. And I don't even know what that is. I'm going to take your word for it. Yeah, it's all this Japanese cartoon stuff, kind of Transformer type stuff,
But that was before.
Right, but
before
he was
anime.
Yeah, but I mean, anyway, so
gotcha.
But so then he's in school in college, and he's like what does he take? He takes bronze casting and some computer science stuff and blends it all together. And next thing you know, I know he's working as he's over this San Francisco Bay Area arts and design school.
Oh wow!
And he runs their whole shop program, like regular shop stuff, and then all the CNC and laser cutting, and he's just a whiz.
Wow! And that's what he still does today.
Yeah. Well, actually, no. He is
think
not,
again, Ben.
He actually got out of that, and he went to work for a upstart. What am I trying to say? Electric vehicle charging station company.
Okay.
And they make these portable self-standing charging stations that don't connect to the grid or the house. You can go buy one. You got to have a lot of money, but you can put them in nowhere land. Yeah,
he was in town. I think he told me about that. That's right.
Yeah.
He was down at the bakery and said something about that.
He's a really, really smart kid. Just like a whiz.
Yeah, that's cool. So a few years in California, like the rest of us here, you know.
Yeah, you guys were California. We all came back.
No, we didn't. We all didn't.
Jamie's never even been.
I went one time for an NP event.
Yeah.
Went to Monterey Bay for one day.
And did you? And it might have been fun. You might have had a fun time there.
I did. I went kayaking actually.
Yeah, we went out.
They sent us all out kayaking with the sea lions.
Sea lions
out there.
Yeah. No, there's good things about California, but there's a lot of good stuff about it. But you got to fight all those people and do anything. It's like for me to go paddling out there, you'd like literally leave. I don't know. 2-3 in the morning to go up the American River so you wouldn't be in rush hour and it'd still be horrible to get up there, It's just nuts.
And the water's cold.
Yeah.
Like even
it's cold water, it's all good.
Doesn't bother Arlo.
It's not as I know, but it's not as warm as it looks in the pictures,
Yeah.
You're like
New Michigan water.
You see these beautiful beaches and you're like, look at that water.
Yeah.
You're like, I have to wear a wetsuit in that water. So so no California for any of us back here to this area. And then what?
So I came back. I worked for NOC for like 5 years, I think, around in there, on and off. And then I just started blending out and doing stuff on my own. I think I worked for Bill Baxter for a while. Then he's a great guy to work for, good guy.
He still builds in the area too, I think.
Yeah. But and it did a bunch of stuff, like we rebuilt Nanahala Village when it burned down and a bunch of stuff like that. So kind of it's interesting, all the stairways I can walk around and say, I built that stairway. I
remember you telling me about that stairway in particular. And this is a commercial building. I mean, the village, it's a resort with a restaurant and like hotel kind of spaces. And there was a design flaw in the staircase or something.
They had a major beam going right through where there couldn't be one. And because it was like supposed to be this open stairway. And it's like we had to like move this huge bearing, LVL that was huge and move it back. And it's crazy. And then we ended up having to get a lot. And that was kind of my introduction to steel work. This is, like this funny story. Bax hires some guy from Asheville, to do the railing. And, like when you're in trouble when somebody shows up, when they show up with a bag from Walmart that has a little plastic protractor, a $1.99 level, and a new tape measure in it. And you're going, this guy is measuring the railing for this 3-story thing. Oh, wow. And of course, it's crazy because he made the pieces and came back and they didn't even remotely fit. Nothing fit. And and Bax was totally frustrated and he goes, well, just figure it out, do something. So I was like, it was 2-inch tubing or something, I think 1.5 inches or something. So we just ripped everything 1.5 inches and built it out of wood and then gave this guy pieces and said, make this.
So you made patterns for him?
Yeah. Make these wood patterns. Yeah. And
that's a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah. Just make them, you know it fits, make it jig. And
sometimes you can't make the thing until you have the thing.
Yeah,
it's a little bit of a catch-22.
I do that a lot, actually.
Yeah. I love doing that too. And when you have a thing that needs to go against another thing, but the other thing doesn't exist yet, you make a thing that represents that thing, and then you build the part they need to, and then you replace the other part with the real one. And it sounds complicated, but actually it's really logical. Yeah. And it makes it to where you don't fumble and guesswork too much.
Well, that was like we'll call it an Arloism when you were working on this house, is when he did the cedar shakes.
Oh yeah.
You had a method.
Yeah,
to do it, to make it go.
It's just like I've done a bunch of it, and you get up in these weird gable ends, and you're like going, you can either spend a lot of time going up and down, measuring, every one, or you can like lay out rows and lay out a whole bunch of shingles and write numbers on them and cut them and then hand somebody 15, 20 shingles and do it.
That's pretty cool.
So,
I did not get my hands on that part. They must have done that without me.
I think that was Eric and Arlo thing.
Yeah, it was Eric and I think Jonno, Eric, and I think, I think it's mainly Eric.
Hazel House stairs. Like,
Oh yeah.
In fact, I just walked out back when I was waiting for you guys when I was a little early. I was like, oh yeah, there's those shingles. They look pretty good. It's like,
So-
you know what's funny? This is crazy. I drove up here and, when we were working here the whole time, I was looking at the backside of your house, right?
Yeah.
So it's like new. And like I drove up here and I was like oblivious to the front of it the whole time I was coming up here. And I pulled in and I was like, is this the right place? I was like, because it's like, it's that old stone or, cut block stone, whatever house. And I was like, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So one of the things I want to share that Arlo saved my butt on.
Oh, no.
A thing that I couldn't figure out. I mean, I'm always figuring stuff out, trying to figure stuff out. One of the renovations that we did in town where we had a 100-year-old house with a really bad foundation, which by really bad, it was just stones stacked on top of the dirt. No footing, nothing. And it had settled and gone really bad.
Yeah.
So we decided the only fix for it was to take away all the stone foundation and replace it with a new modern concrete block foundation. Okay. So we had a little bit of a strategy and a lot of jacks in the house, like every corner. Like literally, we took out the entire old foundation in one shot and put the whole house on jacks. So it was all sitting on little tiny bottle jacks.
And it was
small
kind
ones.
of all like the load points or things or, it was just,
We had,
different.
I think we had pretty much removed entirely the whole inside frame of the floor.
Okay.
So there was walls, exterior walls at least, and some hanging interior walls.
balloon frame.
Balloon framed house. And so we hand dug footings under the walls, which is hard because you can't get a machine in there. You got to hand dig it. And then we dug piers and laid block at the load bearing points to where we could actually, we had the house lifted about an inch or two higher than we wanted it to finish out at, so that we could build a couple piers and then lower the house onto those piers. And then we had like 8-foot sections between every pier all the way around the perimeter of the house, which was probably 100 feet, to fill in with block. And this was something I laid awake at night and I never could figure out. We were going to lay block. So I think it was 3 courses of block. So we left our footing, the top of the footing was 24 inches below the framing. Okay, so 3 rows of blocks makes 24 inches. How do you lay that last row of block tight to the bottom of a floor system? How do you lay that block tight? Because if you put mud on your block that's there, your second course, and then you take your third block and you set it on there, it's going to sink every time.
And you're going to push it off.
And I was like, Arlo, I can't figure it out. I literally was racking my brain about this, thinking this is impossible. And Arlo was like, oh, you just, why don't you tell them what it is? I'll let you tell how you do it.
So you got to, I learned it way back in Minnesota, and you just basically take cedar shims. We're back to the shim thing again, or whatever they are, and you stick shims in from each side, and you jam the block up where you want it, and then you tuck point in all the joints, and then when they're set up, you pull the shims out and put in the rest of the tuck point the rest, and voila, you're done.
Unbelievable. My mind is still blown. And this was 5 years ago. My mind is still blown. This is apparently it's ancient technology.
It is.
That's probably how they built the pyramids.
If we'd been smart, we could have probably done it with great stuff.
Oh yeah.
Push it right out.
No, it would have lifted it too much. But that's how it happened. And literally, to me, it was an unsolvable problem. And Arlo was like, it's no big deal.
Huh.
And that's the way a lot of stuff went.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that's the obviously the point that stands out the most because it's the one you talked about, but that the point where Arlo swoops in and saves the day.
That's right.
Yeah.
He's like Superman. I gotta tell you.
So you got to think about this. So I think you got to look at life this way. You can probably learn something from just about anybody, I mean, that's one thing, having worked like Minnesota here, a lot of people from different areas. A lot of people have different ways of doing something, and you kind of go, this works, and I always say this, that I think building is maybe not original ideas. It's just everybody stealing everybody else's idea and running with it, making it better.
Yeah.
Or who knows
for
what.
sure. Well, there was a guy, I was going to tell another thing about you, that people are jealous of me as a builder, having you on my crew when you work for me. And my buddy Andy, that used to work for me also, but he became a builder and got his commercial and residential license. He's
a good guy. Yeah,
he's a great guy and a great builder, and I'm still very good friends with him. See him pretty much every week still now. And he for the longest time, he was having a hard time getting help, and I'm sure he still is, but he's like, man, I just need somebody like Arlo. I just need an Arlo. Why can't I just find an Arlo? Somebody I can just leave, and they can just work without me having to babysit them. So I don't know if he ever got an Arlo.
I think every entrepreneur everywhere is looking for an Arlo.
Well,
maybe multiple Arlos.
But what do you think? You gotta, I think, okay, Jamie, let me ask you this. How many mistakes have you made, doing stuff? It's like
countless.
So you gotta be willing to kind of try and then learn from your mistakes,
I
and then you go on.
To screw stuff up all the time.
It's like, but getting good ideas from everybody.
Back to the way you build your own houses.
Right.
It's like me and Ben had a conversation about how I might want to build a foundation if nobody told me what to do and I could just do whatever I want. And sometimes, like when you're out there building your own houses, and you do whatever you want because nobody's there to tell you no. Right. You did a really cool insulation and framing detail in your house where he's got rigid foam on the outside of the house. Right. And horizontal half ripped 2x6s that stack up. So his siding, that's vertical siding, has horizontal nailing in all the exact places he wants it, and it's really well insulated and stuff like that. Like that's a non-mainstream way to build. Right. And I've never built a house that way, but when I saw it, I really liked it. I thought, this is awesome, and it's stuff like that is like, well, this makes a lot of sense, and it'll do the thing I want it to do, and nobody's going to tell me no.
Right. And I'm gonna do it. And it's kind of crazy, like, how did I get to that idea? Okay, so the idea that really came from doing a zillion houses that had a bunch of vertical siding on it that you went inside and you put a million blocks in everywhere that you hated doing, and it messes up the insulation everywhere. And you're just like, well, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I started thinking like, okay, I'll take and build a regular 2x4 wall, and then I will get 2x6s, rip them in half so they're 2 3/4, nail one at the bottom, then and in the direction so that's 1.5 inches thick. Then I bought 1.5 inches thick foam and cut that into like 10-inch strips, put one of those in, put another, one of the pieces going up there. And, so you think, okay, I got my perfect nailers going, every foot all the way up the wall, which was great. Right. The trade-off to that was, who would have imagined that, you know how crappy wood is nowadays, that all those horizontal pieces flatten the wall out. Like this house that I'm in right now has the flattest walls in it I've ever been in any house. And it's because it's got all these pieces going sideways across.
I love it. I want it. I want to build a new house.
And it was an after shoot when I was thinking like, okay, everybody's talking thermal, breaks. So this isn't a perfect thermal break. The only place you have it, where it transfers energy through completely is where they cross. But that's just a bunch of little dots everywhere, right? So,
and you put zip board on the outside of that?
I zipped on the outside of that, and then
you nailed your siding right to that zip board.
Yeah.
What a brilliant design.
And the building inspectors, they kind of looked at me a little crazy, and they go, "Well, that'll work." And the other thing about it is, you could use all this weird sized plywood. It didn't matter if it was 8 feet long, right? Just slap it up there and nail it as long as it fit this way.
That's right.
How
smart. Dang.
Well, you said there was nobody to tell him no, but there was one person that could tell him no.
What, his wife?
Absolutely. All the time.
So, and that's...
She also builds, she is his second set of hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Let's put it this way. Do you remember Tony Oliver?
Yep.
So I always, it's funny, I refer to houses that I built here, but the house, Lincoln's house, and I call that the barn house because it's barn shape. Jan is the toughest woman in the world, according to to Tony Oliver, and I'll fess to it. There was like 4,500 12-inch blocks in that foundation.
Wow.
And she hand mixed in a mud box every bit of mud for it.
Wow.
Dang.
I don't know any other wives that'll do that.
Person.
Person.
Yeah.
Not
And
just
I
wives.
don't know what I was thinking. Why didn't I get a mixer?
Well,
But but the reality was I was kind of like, I was doing it like I was doing 3 hours at night here. So it's like, let's go out and mix a batch or two and do it. The next thing you know, there it was. It was like crazy.
little
I
by
didn't know
little.
that about Jan. So
Maybe it came from this. My parents, when they got married, they lived in Chicago outside, and this was like they got a block mold and made their own blocks. You couldn't buy them back then. It was like after World War II.
That's
And they actually got a block mold, and my parents told me the story. Yeah, we mixed up all the mud and made our own blocks.
Wow.
And then they laid up the foundation. It's like, I can't even imagine it.
I was reading about talking about architecture. There's like people that are into it can date a home like mine
Right.
based off of the style block.
Yep.
Because it was made in a mold.
Yep.
On site,
Yeah.
and that only happened between a certain time period. So they can look at this house and be like, it was built between here and here because that's when they were using.
Yeah.
And that's when you could buy block molds in the newspaper.
Exactly.
And like different, because it can have different like faces on the front, and because that's why mine's all textured.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know anything about that. It's all very fascinating, actually. Only thing I do know is from tearing apart some old houses that the old blocks are very heavy. And,
No kidding.
And you would have had to been ultra strong to
you think about it.
pick them up and lay them.
Yeah.
Compared to what we have now, the 8-inch lay lights, they
Yeah.
call them.
Yeah.
And they're not light either,
Yeah.
but they're sure a lot lighter than those concrete blocks.
Well, when we cut out over here for the dryer vent, there's like a core sample of one of those blocks, and I kept it. It's just like it's so crazy how like thick and like dense that block is compared to what you have today. So
That's
It's probably like the ice cream. They probably were putting a lot more concrete back into that. Right. I mean, seriously, because that's, I think, what makes it really dense and heavy.
Yeah.
It's just like,
there's something that's appealing about some of the older construction methods. I mean, we're all new and modern with our, building science and building code and energy efficiency, and all that is dictating how we build for the most part and all that. But a lot of the older methods, I think they're really cool. I mean, I am somewhat fascinated with it,
Well, think about how many old homes there are, not necessarily here, but in Europe. Like castles and things like that. I mean, somebody was doing something right.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
because they're still standing hundreds and hundreds of years, and people. So
your dad was groundbreaking. You know that, right?
Tell me in what way?
Like he way back in the day was, I can't remember if he was using packing tape or duct tape. And, and tape and plywood joints. Way before zip tape.
Oh yeah.
People were like, "What are you?
Why are you doing that?" Yeah,
crazy.
Definitely. I actually did a little remodel on my mom's house on the house I grew up in.
Okay.
And this was, I don't know, more than 10 years ago, maybe 15, and we added onto the living room and onto the front and some things. And when we took the siding off, the old siding, we did see tape. It was duct tape, just like you're saying, around the windows.
It was his own house.
And,
right?
exactly. And on the joints. So it had mostly deteriorated. It was
probably,
all but dust.
It probably vaporized,
but I'm sure it did well for a period of time.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
So,
Way to go, Dad.
We'll have.
Too bad he didn't.
We'll have to have Rand on here too.
I have been trying to warm him up to the idea of being on here.
And
he listens to the show. Hey, Dad. But he I don't know if he wants to talk on the show. He's afraid he won't have anything to say or something.
Come on, he can.
But
he could
I
say
know that he
lots.
would be very interesting to listen to and tell his story about a lot of the same things.
I'll ask all the questions, Rand. I know I can ask you.
Yeah.
He'll give you plenty to talk about, even if it's biking and paddleboarding and
that's right
and all that stuff. But
that's right.
Now let's talk about Jan a little bit. Like, when did you meet Jan?
Okay, I met her. Let's see. We've been married 30 years.
Okay.
So that was this year, and I guess we got together probably about 3-4 years before that. So it was when I came back from California. I was at NOC hanging around,
Had you
kind of
California
whip-tailed between my legs. I was kind of being a bachelor hiding out. I was living in this little house up by Queens Lake by myself up there. And
Now you had a big curly head of hair.
Oh,
back. I saw pictures.
Yeah,
and he was a stud too. Not that you're not now. I mean, you still are. Obviously,
I was.
I mean, dude, he was shredded. Had this big old curly head.
I had a.
That's another YouTube short right there.
I was like a Peter Frampton. Like I'd teach a clinic. I'd be driving on the road and all these women in the clinic would be like, "Oh, your hair is so."
And he had an awesome truck. I've heard all the stories. I know all about his trucks that he had, and stereos in his trucks, and big tires. And
now this is pretty funny. So like, okay, I go to NOC, and I left Minnesota, and I was actually going to go a year earlier in '79, but I had, if anybody, you guys don't remember, but there was like a total gas crisis, crunch, it's when gas went to $1 and everybody's going nuts. But anyways, so I had waited a year to buy a Volkswagen Diesel Rabbit that got 50 miles a gallon because I was about boating and going all over the country and this, that, and everything, right? So I drive this down to NOC, and I'm here, and I loan it to a girlfriend. Actually, she's really nice, and it was not her fault, but right at the falls, right by Nanahala Falls, a big old rock came sliding down and landed right on the road, and she ended up driving over it and wiping out this V-dub that I had saved and had for a year, so what do you do? I don't even know why, but I ended up buying this Toyota, 4x4 back in the day, and it was, it was back when it had the solid front axles way back in, back then, and so, well, I was 25. I don't know what I was doing, but before this, I had a good friend in college who, his dad owned a wrecker shop, and they were total gearheads into cars and stuff. So I had kind of been doing that back in South Dakota a little bit with him. So of course I got this Toyota, and the next thing you know, it had a big suspension on it and huge tires and jacked up.
Whoops.
And then the crazy thing, get this, is really crazy. I cut the back out of this cab and turned it into the first 4Runner, built a cedar strip topper on the back, and hips were welded out of roll cage. It really was. It was, it was crazy. Man, yeah,
I don't want to brag or nothing, but I invented the 4Runner.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Are there photos of that?
Yeah, I probably got them around somewhere. Yeah,
we might need to see those.
Yeah,
right. We're gonna go through.
I got to go through, but yeah, there's definitely some around somewhere.
So Jan worked out at NOC too. I mean, I know she was in retail. Was it the whole time she was there?
Yeah. So she came. She was like sailing, and then she was kind of getting to. She still had her boat. She was, she'd leave in the wintertime, and so she was kind of in the look for a winter job. She was getting tired of hanging out in Oriental, so she decided to come out here for a summer, and she literally got here in one of those summers where it rained every day, and so she was like ready to leave, but somehow, I guess what happened is I was teaching a clinic, and NOC would do this thing if the clinic wasn't full, staff could get in it. So she ended up in the clinic, and the rest was history.
With Arlo the stud, with the curly hair.
Exactly. There you go.
What's the movie Dirty Dancing?
Yeah, it was something like that. Whatever. Yeah.
Patrick Swayze. You were
No, we just hit it off really well, and so and the amazing thing is I was like totally enthralled with sailing, and I was like, don't sell your boat, and then she ended up selling it. So
and you told her you could build her one.
Yeah. So, then she was like, no, I'm done sailing, and then of course a few years later she was like, maybe I should sail again, maybe we should sail, and that's where it went to the boat building stuff. So, anyways,
okay.
So
did you ever sail?
I've sailed a little bit with, we have not sailed that much. We've done a bunch of stuff with friends, like brought boats back from the Bahamas and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No.
I wouldn't say she's the sailor in the family.
Right.
I'm a wannabe sailor.
I still don't know what side
and
of the boat
I think
is
truly
what.
boat builders are really not sailors. They're boat builders.
Yeah.
You're more of, I think that's probably true, really.
Yes. Okay.
But I like to go sailing. It's fun.
Yeah,
it's good.
And I never been on really sailboating. I've been on a windsurfing board.
Yeah.
My dad had a bunch of those.
Yeah.
And I that was super fun.
Yeah.
I mean, feeling the wind, like make acceleration is like pretty cool. Until I went out one day on a really too windy of a day and it was wavy and the sail was too big for the conditions. And I was just a kid. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't good at it or anything. And I forget what beach it was, like the Outer Banks or something. And there's a rope attached to the mast. And it's also attached to the board.
Right.
So you get some leverage and it's got big knots in it and then you pull the sail up when you drop the sail. Right. Well, the dang rope came detached from the board end. It was attached to the mast.
So, you're right.
But I lost all of the leverage and so I had no mechanical advantage. And I was out there just a kid and my dad saw that I was out there struggling. I couldn't keep the sail up. And to get back in, and they actually, some of the beach like lifeguard people were assembling their efforts to come and get me. And my dad came out there; he was in a sea kayak, and I just like hung onto the back of a sea kayak, and he pulled me back in. But so that was my sailing experience. I hope yours is better.
Yeah, no, mine's been better than that. So
and then because I'd met Jan probably. I didn't know who she was like during my childhood growing up here because she managed the Nanahala Outdoor Center store that was in Bryson City. She proper there for a while. It's no longer here because they had closed it down and moved it out or whatever, which was one of the reasons that I was like, Bryson City needs an outdoor store again, which we have one now, but that was one of the main reasons is because NOC had moved out of theirs, and there was a couple of years there people kept coming into the store I was working in when I was in high school and was like, why is there not an outdoor store in this town? And I was like, I don't know.
It's crazy because she tried being a raft guide and a kayak instructor, and she just didn't really click with her or whatever. So, and she had a background way back when she was really young in retail, and I don't know if you know her, but she could sell ice cubes to Eskimos. I mean, seriously, and she's really good at sales, and so what was she doing? She was actually being a raft guide at NOC, and then a girl that was running that store that was the old bank building. She died in a car accident, and this is Lori Ducker.
I talked to what's her husband?
Kurt.
I just talked to him.
Kurt, Anyways, so Jan ended up taking that store over, and she ran it for quite a while. I can't think how many years, and did pretty well with it. But as a whatever, NOC, they used it as a sign people up for raft trips, and they really didn't try to make it a great store. And she was trying to make it a great store. She did really well, but she didn't really get backed by them to, and we were all thinking they were crazy to give up their spot in NOC or remain in Bryson City. And then, you guys show up and we're like, oh geez, they could be doing this, it's it's like, what are they doing? It's almost like they were early and then they got out, or something.
And that's, and I actually met Jan formally before the outdoor, at the first year of the outdoor store, because we were still doing web design and marketing. Dwayne and I were, and she had came in for help with her website. To actually build her new one, I think. That's how I really met Jan and Arlo both.
Well, actually, what it was is that we're still computer literates, but we had bought this Mac, and we're like, and she got a hold of you to, I believe, didn't you come over and show her how to use it?
Maybe. I don't know.
I think, and then she had you do a website or do stuff.
That's because the first Mac I got was from your mom.
Oh, right. She bought it and didn't like it.
She bought it, and she was like, I can't use this thing, and I got a great deal on my first MacBook because your mom was like, I don't want this.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's like all these old school people like, whatever.
But anyway, I'm not going to say why Jan needs a website because she'll kill me if I tell people what she does or whatever. But she makes things. I don't know. You can say it, but I'm not going to give it away.
No, so it's we were talking about it. How many years has she been doing it? I think 13 or 14, something like that. Yeah. But anyways, she makes hats and bags and
out of canvas material.
And Sombrella, and it's pretty good. It's a pretty good business. She's like probably like you and I, like you're kind of a little like to do it yourself. It's hard to let other people do it. So she has probably driven herself crazy doing all her manufacturing herself. And I'm like, ship it out. But she goes to arts and craft shows. And so she goes to, there's all these different levels of that. And if you go at one level, you have to make everything yourself 100%. You can't have other stuff. So she tries to do those. And but she's in the kind of the taper down stage now a little bit. If you know anybody that like wants to start a hat and bag business, she got a lot of sewing machines and patterns and go for it and who knows what. And she's got it. It's amazing how many.
Yeah, it's quality stuff.
I mean, she sells about 500 hats a year. I mean, it's just wacky.
And it's not like she's trying that hard either. Like
she
as
does
far
it
as
like
she goes wholesale to
I mean,
any retailers or anything like that.
No, she thought like I could do this, wholesaling, and then I'm just sewing hats all day, and we wouldn't be married if she was sewing hats all day because it's bad for 3 months when she's sewing hats in the wintertime. Because by the time spring comes, we're like ready to be divorced because she's just like hating life. I
remember Arlo would come into work sometimes complaining that his hands hurt because he's been cutting with scissors, patterns of canvas.
But she can mix concrete for 4,000 some blocks.
So I don't complain about it. I was like, and it's funny. So here's a funny story. My son, who saw what she was doing, and he's like, well, why isn't she like laser cutting that? You can buy a laser cutter, And so it's funny. He gets a hat, and he's out here, and he takes a hat, and he lays a tape measure beside it, this way, that way, and does a couple things. And 3 months later, I go to California, and we go down to his school, and he just like turns out a perfect pattern of this hat from just these 3 measurements.
Oh wow.
And then of course they have the laser cutters for fabric, and he cuts these things out, and I take them home and take them home, and she sews them together, and it's like a perfect hat. And but the amazing thing, I can cut faster than that laser cutter.
Oh really?
and she won't pay me like $12,000 to buy one.
Well, there's that too.
I don't know. So whatever.
So that's you might see Jan out and about. Do you go with her to the shows sometimes?
Oh yeah, I go. Yeah, and in fact, actually, it's kind of crazy. We thank you GoFundMe, but we just bought a new transit van, and we're probably going to get rid of her. We're going to get rid of the Astro. We're going to get rid of the Honda van, and we'll use that. Probably set it up just because there's so much room in it. Just throw her stuff in it for a few shows that she does.
So you're going to build out a transit van.
Yeah, that's the next thing. So I'm going to try.
I'm going to, lots of little cubbies in there. That
no, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
This is pretty scary because for years I've talked about it, and I've been all over the internet. And you go, if you guys have looked at any of that, there's some people doing some just crazy stuff out there. It's just amazing, and I'm going to try to make mine a blend of actual functional and a little bit useful, so if you nick it or whatever, you're not going to cry, and it's got to hold bikes, it's got to hold us, it's got to have a cooking station, whatever that kind of stuff.
I've been hearing him talk about this.
This is going to be exciting to see for sure.
So we'll see what's happening there, and
I'm excited for you.
So
can't wait to see what you turn out.
And I'm bummed, like you got rid of the
I know
the cutter because I was like, I can make some. I'll get him to cut me something
Ray's
amazing here, and then
Ray,
out the door.
Ray is going to take this thing miles beyond where I was able to do.
You think he will?
I think so. I hope he
does.
does.
So what's he planning to do?
He doesn't know, but
he's pretty good.
He's very computer savvy.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
He's really good with that.
Much more than, and it doesn't take much to be much more than me. But he's got a space to set it up.
Light years ahead of me. So.
I don't know about that, but
yes, I do.
I delivered that thing to his house, and he's got a spot in his basement where he's going to hook it up and all that. So he's going to be up and running in no time. Well, so if I need something, I'll call him.
Yeah, there you go. I think
he should produce something we can sell on the
now,
website.
Jamie,
cool.
A Ray produced CNC product.
Yeah. Now, Jamie, when he first got that thing, he made some awesome signs for Jan. In fact, they're above the door at the house. It was right there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was good. It's good for sign making.
All things canvas. There she was.
How about that? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So, it's a lot of V carving. If you've heard of that, V carving with a 60-degree bit that carves nice 3D stuff. It's very cool.
I've seen some signs.
Very cool.
Yeah. Now, did you just get fried when it took so long to flatten rounds or tabletops with it, or what was it?
Okay.
There's just a lot of things that go wrong.
It's a 4 foot by 4 foot table on the CNC.
Right.
And it is not industrial grade, right? It's like the top of the home shop kind of stuff. And when I tried to put it to the test to grind down, an inch off the top of a 30-inch diameter cookie table, it was going to take like 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
When you hit simulate, and it tells you how long it's going to take. I'm like, oh man, I don't have 6 hours to do this. So unfortunately, I've reverted to the aluminum big table thing that I made with a fence on both sides, where you just take a handheld router.
Yeah, and it's a lot faster.
I mean, that's terrible too.
But it's a lot fast. Yeah, it's way fast.
It'll just chew the material.
Isn't that weird? Like, okay, so here's a more old school method, and and I'm like going, I can cut faster than that laser cutter can cut with scissors. A lot faster. But it cut really beautiful. It's like just. But it also smelled horrible. It's like you're going, oh god, burning stuff too. So you're like.
Yeah,
so,
not great.
Whatever.
Well, I think that's gonna wrap up part 2.
Yeah,
part 2. Yeah,
I'm not gonna put an end on it necessarily, but I think for today we're gonna have to. You've got a thing you've got to do, and I've got some things I've got to do, and Arlo's got a thing he's got to do.
I realized I got to go to a graduation. I said, oh, geez, it's Friday. I thought it was Thursday. No, I know it's Friday.
So
no.
All right, well, we are going to wrap it up. And Arlo, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Man, I love you, man. I love you, man. Very glad to have you.
And there's another thing I want to say here.
Yeah.
Okay. Ben and Brett, awesome addition to Bryson City. Jan and I have talked about this. We're like, you guys have done so much to elevate Bryson City.
Well, thank
Seriously.
you.
Fantastic.
Having been here in 1980, actually 75, when there was nothing. I mean, they had a really good lumber yard.
Well, thank you very much, Arlo. I appreciate that.
Arlo, we'll see you around town. Maybe we'll follow up on the van thing.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And that'd be cool to
I was going to drive it up here, but then I had the Astro van, and, I almost backed into that tree. You back down this driveway. And I thought, I'm not chancing it. This one's bigger.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. And Arlo's got much more to tell, I'm sure, at some later date. And we'll see about getting any of the other crew on here if we can convince them to come sit in the hot seat.
Yeah.
We'd like to do that. It's something that we're working towards. So stay curious, and thanks for watching. Right. And if you don't know, just ask.
All right. See you later.
All right.